Today we're here to talk about Frostpunk 2 on the PlayStation 5. I was given a code by the developers to check it out, so I'm just going to talk through my thoughts and feelings. It's been out a while on PC, about a year, so I'm not going to make this a fully edited review. I'm just going to talk and put some gameplay here so you can see what's going on if you haven't played it yet, and kind of find out how the game is on PlayStation 5. So if that's your jam, stay with me. So we'll start from the beginning about what Frostpunk is, in case you haven't played the first one, but we won't spend hours on it, so we'll very quickly move on to Frostpunk 2. So Frostpunk, if anyone's seen the Netflix series Snowpiercer, it's very much kind of that vibe. It's a post-apocalyptic winter wasteland where everyone's freezing to death and has, most of the planet is just covered in ice, or that, as far as we know, and you're trying to survive with very, rebuild industrial humanity. So the whole premise of the game is that people live around a kind of furnace, a big industrial furnace, and so they build districts and housing in concentric circles around this, like a donut. And then obviously the further away from the furnace you get, the colder that the buildings get, and things like that. So the idea is that the main thing is you have to keep your people warm, because, the temperature can even drop even lower, and you can get really cold spells and all of that great stuff. Obviously, you have to supply the furnace, the generator there, with coal, oil, whatever kind of fuel that you find. So you need to mine it. And so this is a strategy game that does involve mining and all of the stuff you'll expect. You basically create districts, you create working districts, housing districts, and all that great stuff. Now let's move on to Frostpunk 2. So it's very similar to the first game, but it's more intricate and has more detail. So if you did play Frostpunk 1, you will enjoy Frostpunk 2. So in Frostpunk 2, it's just all a little bit more interconnected and detailed, and I find it's more advanced to play. It's not quite as pick up and play as the first game, but that is good. So the idea is the same. Everyone lives around a generator in a snowy landscape. You assign areas, but it's a little bit more fluid, and you build buildings within the areas, and it gives them buffs, and there's a tech tree and all of that stuff, which it is very similar. However, it's all done slightly differently with tech trees and how you do it. There's also factions, so you have to manage happiness, and there's different, instead of just having managing the happiness of one community, you have to manage the happiness of 3 different factions, each separated it by district. So one housing district might be one faction and one might be more on the other, and then the decisions you make affect your relationship with them based on what their beliefs are. So some believe that we should be pushing forward scientifically, and some are like, no, let's let the snow do its thing. And that's a generalization, but you get the idea. And obviously that leads to civil unrest, so you have to you don't want a big coup or civil unrest, because you're the head of this society, and, people start committing crimes and all of that. The way politics plays out is definitely a lot more advanced. You can push through bills, you can, you have to sit for elections and all of that. And exploration is also far more detailed, so you need to build an exploration, district area, and it sends up a ship, and you send out expeditions to different parts of the map, and you can find extra resources this way. You can find people who need homing, so you can bring back the people you find, and it can be in the thousands. So it's good if your settlement needs a boost of people. However, you also have to house these people, so you have to build loads of housing districts, and also they will bring their own culture with them. So some of them create even newer factions, or they mingle with the factions that are there, and then there's infighting. There is a lot more kind of societal management in Frostpunk 2 over the first game. and it's good. And basically that is it. I mean, there's a story mode, there's a endless mode, and it seems fairly simple, but it's more advanced when you get into it. As I said, you have to choose what to research. Do you want to research hospitals? Do you want to research thing? And then you build a hospital in certain districts, or do you want to build, like, you have an extraction kind of district to, say, remove the coal or whatever from the earth, and then you research a coal mine improvement. You build a coal mine, and then, like, the coal mine collapses, and you have to decide, am I going to blow up the coal mine and kill a handful of people down there and save everyone else, or risk it just blowing up a huge chunk of your population? So you're faced with those kinds of dilemmas. You basically just have to keep your settlement going and growing, and that is the general gameplay loop. So let's talk about how it plays on PS5. It plays very well. The controller is not a hindrance like you might think for a strategy game. It probably would be easier with a mouse and keyboard, let's be honest, especially when you want to just quickly mouse over a resource you have, and you're like, when you forget, like, what does that icon mean? Like, is that icon wood, or is that icon goods, or what is that? And then you just quickly mouse over it, and it says, and you're like, oh, okay. It's a bit harder in the PlayStation. You have to, like, press square and then use the D-pad to kind of, like, scroll up and left and right and everything. So it takes a bit longer. However, it's more chill, and there's a radial menu which is suitable to the thumbsticks. Really, the controls are not a big deal. You could go either way on this one. So, plays good in that respect. Now, performance, I'm playing on PS5 Pro. You're offered a lot of some different graphical modes, including PSSR, turning on or off. There's a 30 FPS mode, a 40 FPS mode, and a 60 FPS mode. I will say 60 FPS mode on PS5 Pro is very jaggedy, so it's clearly not a high resolution. You could argue you don't need 60 FPS in a strategy game, so I did change it back to the 30, which is recommended fidelity mode. It looks better. It's 30 FPS, you don't notice it a lot, but I would expect more performance from a PS5 Pro and a strategy game that doesn't really, have a lot going on. Now, in my pre-release build, I encountered a couple of bugs. That one time my game crashed. One time, the menus are just a bit laggy, especially when you're researching, like in the tech tree. Like, it will just hang for about 10-15 seconds sometimes, where you're trying to scroll through the screens. There's a lot going on. It wouldn't be so bad if I had a base PS5. This is PS5 Pro. I mean, I don't understand how the performance is like, even struggling at all. But I would also put this down to pre-release. My honest thoughts here are it'll probably be patched by the time you pick this game up. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, because it hasn't. It only affected me in a couple of select places. The takeaway here is it worth picking up? Yes. If you're a fan of Frostpunk, I think you'll enjoy it, but it is more Frostpunk. So if you're looking for Frostpunk, but with more intricate kind of things and a new story, you'll enjoy it. If you got a bit bored of Frostpunk and you kind of wanted something really fresh, I don't know if you're going to enjoy it so much. So bear that in mind. And if you're completely new to Frostpunk at all, especially on console, just know that this is you do not need to know anything about Frostpunk 1. If you do, there are some little Easter eggs that jump out, but Frostpunk 2 is entirely independent. You do not need to know any of the story from the first one. It sets everything up. There are loads of databases explaining what buildings do. There's a short tutorial, which is okay, gets you in the groove of it, but it's not really, doesn't, in a good way, it doesn't bash you over the head with too many systems. So just jump in and read about the systems yourself is much better. So I'd recommend this to anyone looking for more Frostpunk, basically. It's not hugely innovative, but it does make changes, and it's a good game. It's worth picking up.